Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing from the Trenches podcast. I'm your host, Will Wang, and it's great to have you on here. So for today's episode, I've got my friend Justin Meadows from TunedWP on the podcast. And Justin is an absolute expert when it comes to the technology of websites. So his company helps other businesses develop, launch, and optimize and maintain the websites that they've got to really get the maximum effort from all the marketing and all the business that the website actually does. It's a topic that, the reason why I wanted to get Justin on rather was because we've seen a couple of campaigns over the past few months that have been really affected by speed issues or other website issues that have taken away from the maximum effectiveness of a marketing campaign or a funnel. So it's really good to get Justin on to get his take on, what's happening with websites, how he looks at websites in terms of the performance, not only for a standalone site itself, but also how it can impact a marketing or online marketing campaign. So it's great to have Justin on, and he drops a lot of value and knowledge in terms of how to make sure your site is producing the results that you want. Now, just before we dive into the episode, as always, if you haven't gone to our webpage yet, please do head across to Growth Labs. That's growthlabz.com/resources. On the resource page, what we've done is we're constantly updating free resources on there to help you grow your business, whether it's to generate more leads, to get more sales, or to grow your revenue and your profits. We're constantly updating whatever we've got on there. At the moment, we've got a B2B lead generation checklist, which is our 5 favorite B2B lead generation strategies. And we're putting a whole bunch of videos up on there that we haven't shared with anyone else. So if you haven't already done so, please do make sure that you head back there and have a look to see if anything's been updated. Or if you haven't been there yet, go and download the checklist. But without further ado, let's dive into the episode and get Justin on to talk about how to maintain and optimize your website to improve your marketing and get better results. And I'll see you all on the other side. So, hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Marketing from the Trenches podcast. I've got my friend Justin Meadows from TunedWP on this episode, and we're talking about something that I think it's probably a high time that we talked about, because we've talked about a lot of things like funnels and ads and and some automation stuff on the podcast as well. But one of the things we haven't talked about, which I think would be good, is websites. So I'm going to let Justin introduce himself, tell us his kind of superhero origin story, backstory. But websites is one of those things where I think it's kind of getting lost in all the noise, because the stuff that's kind of sexy at the moment is like funnels and chatbots and stuff like that. But having the fundamentals right, or the foundations right, including website, I think it's something that people are kind of overlooking. So Justin, good to have you on board with this episode, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me, Will.
All good. Yeah. And I think we'll dive into some interesting stuff that you guys are seeing across all the stuff that across all the websites rather that you guys manage. So sure. Let's start at the beginning. Tell me, how you got to this point. Like, what's your origin story?
Yeah, so I started out learning SEO and that sort of thing. So I sort of played around with my own websites, getting them ranked and doing stuff like that. And then I branched out into helping other businesses. And I quickly found, though, that in order to get results for their SEO, I needed to fix up their website, because a lot of the stuff that they were doing, the way that their website was built, was hurting their results and made it really hard to get any results for their SEO. Now, this is about 10 years ago. I've since sort of found, after I started getting into helping people out with their websites, that was a better business model for me, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I've built a team around that. So I've actually, we still help out people with the SEO, but that's not the focus of our business. We don't sort of focus on building out SEO strategies for people. We just make sure that their website is optimized for not just SEO, but for all kinds of different things. So making sure that it loads fast and that it works really well on mobile, and it's not, it's getting them good SEO results and not holding them back in any other sort of ways. So yeah, I guess that's over the past sort of 10 years have been slowly developing this business and the team around it. We initially started off as wholesale suppliers. So we worked with a number of marketing agencies and design agencies, and they would talk to the client, find out what was needed, and then we would just build it in the back end for them, and then look after those websites and tweak them and make sure that they're running really well. So that's really the focus of our business now. We sort of don't work as much with the marketing agencies as a back end supplier. Now we work directly with businesses to make sure that their websites are finely tuned, and that's sort of where we've got our brand name, TunedWP. So we're tuning up people's websites and making sure they're getting the best results. And I think that's like you touched on earlier. That really is something that I see quite a lot. People have these very complicated funnels going on, and they're doing all the right things with their ads and all of that sort of stuff. But then the main homepage of their website has some really obvious things that are sort of holding them back from getting the best results they can out of all that money and effort they're spending on getting leads there. So.
Yeah, awesome. And definitely something that we're going to dive into during the podcast episode as well. So I think one of the reasons, though, that I thought it'd be great to have you on is because we just came off, it's a little while ago, but we were on a mastermind trip together to the Maldives. So it's hard work, but someone's got to do it. And it was funny because some of the other attendees at James Tramco's mastermind was they were your customers, actually. And, they were saying things like, oh, someone hacked my site and you guys got it fixed really quickly. And things like that. Like when you're running traffic to a website or to a funnel that's hosted on a website, it goes down. It really has a big effect on the campaign. So it'd be interesting to talk about that side of things, what people are doing wrong and what they can be doing to not only make sure that they're getting the maximum out of their campaigns, but also make sure that the underlying technology isn't holding them back or it's not affecting them somehow. So
yeah, definitely. There's a number of issues that come up if you do find yourself with malware on your website. I mean, there's the you can get your ads like stopped, and you could be spending until they are stopped. You're going to be having traffic going to that website and then not converting. So you're wasting a lot of money on that. And then you have to go through the process of verifying that the site's clean again. And you have to first clean up the website, and that can be a massive process. And so you end up wasting a day or two on, and stressing out, and like the actual cost to your business can be quite high when you factor in all these sort of things. And if something is left unchecked for a while, then you'll find you'll be taken out of the Google index because Google doesn't want to be sending people to infected websites and that sort of thing. And then there's the trust and brand damage that happens to the people that do visit your website and do get that notification saying, this website is infected, or they see some radical message from some terrorist group or something like that, like on your website. Like that's a really, really bad damaging thing for your brand. And with most businesses, especially on the when they're selling online, that trust factor, being able to trust the person that you're handing over your credit card details to, really is massive. And so damaging that trust can be very hard to reverse. So it is important to make sure that you keep your website secure. And with WordPress in particular, it is the most popular platform in the world for websites. I can't remember the exact stats, but there's a huge chunk of websites now built on WordPress, and that means that it's the best. It's an easy target, because if malware can infect WordPress, then it's got a huge market of where it can be infecting. So definitely it does get attacked a lot more. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily more vulnerable. You just need to make sure that you're doing the right things to keep it secure. If the website is not kept up to date with the latest security patches that are coming out to combat the malware, and if you're using insecure hosting environments, bad passwords, not having some robust firewalls in place and things like that. If you're not doing the right things, then it is very easy to get infected. But it doesn't take much to do those right things, and then you you stay very secure.
Okay,
So
awesome. Let's dive into that, because I think what we'll do is we'll categorize like 3 or 5, the things that probably a lot of people are doing, which they shouldn't be, like the biggest mistakes. And then let's look at, the 3 to 5 things that people should be doing, which is really easy to do, that would get them just the biggest benefits. And hopefully in there we can get some stories from you as well about some funny website stuff. Because as you were saying that, I was like, the idea of a terrorist group hacking to your website and uploading stuff, it's kind of like, you come for the final stay for the jihad, right? Like just random stuff like that. So I'm
yeah.
sure you've seen a couple of really funny things. Let's get into it though. So let's start with 3, and we can always go to 5 if we need to. But what are the 3 biggest mistakes or issues that you're finding a lot of people are making with their websites?
Do you mean just from a security point of view?
No, just from, so even like a marketing
Gotcha.
point of view, because
Yeah,
I'll jump in here, because one of the things that we look at with our clients is how quickly their landing pages or their site loads. Because if
Mhm.
it's a slow loading site, it actually really affects conversion rates. So
Yep.
that might be one of them. I'm not sure if it is, but what are you seeing in terms of website performance or marketing performance that you think
Yeah.
shouldn't be as prevalent as it actually is?
Yeah, so I think the 3 biggest things that I see as being major issues is um, the first one is speed. So quite often, most websites do need some substantial improvements to their speed. A lot of business websites that we audit, because we have an audit service, we can do a performance review, and yeah, speed always stands out as an area for improvement, especially on mobile. And yeah, there's a bit more to dive in there, but also just on mobile, that's probably the second thing. Is quite often people put a lot of focus into how their desktop version of their website looks and flows and works, but they're not really considering that mobile experience, and they don't even often don't know how much of their traffic is coming from mobile. But these days, it's on average, around 50%. In a lot of markets, it'll be higher. It'll be 60, 70% of your traffic will be coming from mobile phones. So you really want to make sure that experience is really good, that it flows well, and it's easy to use. Because if you're frustrating people on that first experience that they're having with you on their phone, you're not going to get them coming back.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Uh,
Mobile traffic's huge as well. I mean, some of the campaigns that we run for clients, depending on what niche they're in and what they're trying to do with the campaign, we won't even run traffic towards desktop, because it's oftentimes more expensive or doesn't convert as well, and just people aren't on the desktop as much, or not browsing on social media as much when they're on desktops, and it's all
yeah.
mobile. So that's a huge point.
Yeah. And then I think that the final thing is just that um, I I see it quite a lot where the flow of the information on the homepage and the main sort of, I guess, the story that you want to tell clients, and the journey you want to take them on, from first encountering your brand and telling them what you have to offer and why it's for you, and talking about the benefits that you can provide to them and solving their problems, and then what they need to do next. That is done really poorly on a lot of websites. And quite often they might have a landing page which does that really well, because they've got someone in who specializes in this sort of thing, and they've got a really good landing page that they're sending ads to. But people will go to your homepage as well. So you've got to make sure that your homepage has a very clear message and is not cluttered with a whole bunch of other things. As businesses grow, you add in a few services, or you have some new promo thing, and quite often people just chuck it on the homepage, and then it gets cluttered with all these conflicting sort of things that you're not sure what you should do next, or the overall message of who you are and what you do is very vague, and it's not targeted to a specific audience or a specific problem. So I think that quite often that's a big thing that I see, is that people need to tidy up that first impression and the flow of information.
Yeah.
And yeah, and actually going in with that as well, this is another thing, is building trust. As I mentioned before, trust is a big factor, and it quite often gets overlooked. People just focus on those sales messages. They're not really thinking about the trust factors. There's always a few more trust elements, building authority with the type of information you're putting out, and associating yourself with other logos, media organizations, partners, that sort of thing. doing all those kind of things really builds trust and can make a big difference to your conversions.
Yeah, perfect. It's actually kind of interesting because, so obviously you're an absolute expert in the tech side of it, but for you to say that in terms of like messaging, the flow, the user experience, it's really interesting as well because that's not necessarily a tech thing, but that does have an effect on the tech, right? And tech has an effect on, that flow of experience. Let's just call it.
Yeah. We take a very holistic view of what the performance of a website. So we look at a number of different factors, and I think that it is easy to get bogged down in the technical stuff and not look at that sort of bigger picture. So yeah, I think it is very important.
Yeah, awesome. It's really funny because I feel like I'm almost being caught out here as well because my site hasn't been updated. We're actually in the process of doing it now, but we haven't updated our site for I think 3.5 years. And some of the services that I just had to turn off a page because we had Google Ads and stuff up on there. We don't even do Google Ads anymore. It's like, all right, maybe it's time for a refresh. So we're going through that whole process too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and for a growing business, it's not like it's very common. It's not like it's a bad thing. It's just that it's something that does need to be revisited on a regular basis. You need to, because your business changes as it grows, and so you need to be conscious of just going back to it every now and again and saying, right, what do we need to change or improve or remove or that sort of thing.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's get back to the 3 points then. First one was, so we had a speed issue in there. We had the mobile optimization and then the user experience and user flow being the three of the biggest things that can affect a website. And by website, it then obviously affects the performance of campaigns and stuff like that. So what's your tips around getting around the three most common things? Like what would you say in terms of increasing the speed of your website? What have you seen that works?
Yeah, so there's quite a few tips. One is I would recommend always implementing Cloudflare CDN. That always makes a bit of a difference to people's speed. Making sure that you've got a good caching plugin set up. And this is getting a bit technical here, but what we're doing here with the caching and with Cloudflare is we're making it so that every time someone visits your website, you're downloading the website files onto your computer. Instead of having to do that directly from the server every single time, you using caching and using Cloudflare, you create copies of that website that are in data centers all over the world, and people just accessing that nearest copy. And
right.
on the actual on the website itself, on the server, there will be caching that instead of having all the different bits of files that need to be pulled together to view the website, it pulls it all together into one cached version. And so you're just requesting one file, which is, it's fewer files. And then when it comes onto your computer, a lot of those bits of it get saved onto your computer. So when you hit the next page, a lot of the elements of that website are already on your computer saved, and it just reuses those. It doesn't need to download the whole thing again for the next page. So
brilliant.
Yeah, hope that sort of explained it. But that's something that makes a big difference to speed. And there's a number of different moving parts to it. There's the Cloudflare, the server caching, and then the browser caching. And so, you want to make sure you have those in place.
Yeah, awesome. I was just going to ask you because we, back in the day, probably about 8 or 10 years ago, when I first got started in marketing, one of the things that I did very early on was sell websites to a forum. I was in a forum about gaming, massive nerd, and some guy on there was like, "Hey, I've got this small business. Can you help me with it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So one of the things that we looked at back in the day was reducing image sizes so that things loaded a lot faster. Is that still relevant, or am I kind of like a dinosaur in this space?
No, it is definitely something, and a lot of the time, I see websites that could do with their images being optimized a bit more. So it's important too. There's two parts to that. One is compressing the image down to the lowest file size while still making sure that it looks good. However, on a website, when you're viewing on a website, it doesn't need to be super high quality. Not like a photo or something that you would print out. You can really compress it down and get it a little bit blurry and it still look good. And the size of that file will be just heaps smaller. So doing that, but then also making sure that in the code structure, it's telling the browser, right, this image is displaying at this size, so that it doesn't download a big photo and then try to resize it, and that sort of slows things down, and you're downloading an unnecessarily large image and things like that. So yeah,
Oh, awesome.
there's other parts to it.
Yeah, so that leads me to the next question. And I'll definitely get on to the mobile optimization because I think that's a huge one. But in terms of like, interesting that you brought up video, photos and how it gets processed, stuff like that. Well, how about video? Like, are you finding that video affects the speed at all, or what's your take on that?
Yep. Yeah. So there's, this actually leads into another thing about scripts, but with video, certainly one thing, 100% you should always use a dedicated video host, YouTube, Vimeo Pro, Wistia, something like that. So you want to host your video files off the website, but you don't want to just raw embed that video code onto the page, because that will hold up the loading of the rest of your website. So your website will try and load the video script to display the video embed before it loads the rest of your website. So what you want to do is just put a very, like a placeholder image that looks like your video, has the play button. It looks exactly the same as the video is going to look on your page, but it's just an image. And when you click it, then it loads the video script. So it might take a couple of seconds after you click, but that couple of seconds is happening after they've already clicked and they definitely want to watch the video, rather than it being at the start before the website page even loads. So doing that sort of thing. And there's other ways that you can order the priority of the scripts, because by default, a website will try to load and finish and get all the resources from these scripts before it continues to load the rest of the page. But by using Google Tag Manager, things like your analytics code, your remarketing codes, all those sort of tags and scripts, you can move other things in there as well, like maybe your live chat script, things like that. You can move into Google Tag Manager, and that loads separately to the rest of your website files. So it might take a while, but those things will happen when they happen, and it doesn't hold up the show. The other thing you can do is making sure that unnecessary codes are not being put at the top. You're only loading what you need in order to see the page, and you only need to load the top part of the page initially. You can then leave the rest of the scripts to load further on down the page after the top bit is visible to the user.
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. So let's jump into the next thing then, because I think the second part of it was optimizing for mobile, which I think is huge, especially in terms of advertising and campaigns and stuff like that. So just talking through some of the tools or like processes, techniques that you guys use to make sure that a website is properly optimized.
Yep. Yeah, so I think one of the big things is just considering how the mobile layout is going to go from the desktop one down. Quite often we run into designs that just don't work as well when you reduce them down to a small screen size. So you need to sort of have that consideration in the design process, and then doing things like making sure that the menu is condensed and really you're stripping out all the unnecessary things to make it very easy to navigate, making sure that the elements resize correctly at landscape tablet, at portrait tablet, at small phone, just making sure that all that works. And yeah, doing things like having a button to be able to easily scroll up the page, or as you're scrolling down the page, you want to make sure that header stays across the top so you can easily navigate to a different page if you need to. You don't have to scroll all the way back up.
Yeah,
Things
gotcha.
like that. And having a call to action in that header, so a button that's the next step, that really helps with converting as well. And then another part of it is the speed. So quite often, on mobile, you want to make sure that things load fast because people are very impatient. You want to make sure that it reacts very well. So optimizing the speed on the mobile. There's one thing that's being pushed recently by Google that's called AMP. It's Accelerated Mobile Pages. It's actually another version of your website. So you still need to have a very good mobile responsive website for traffic that comes from Facebook, but for traffic that comes from Google Ads, from Chrome browsers, those sort of things, Google will probably load up the AMP version, and that is a simplified version. It runs a very simple code. There's some functionality and some design elements, like some fonts might not be able to be used, things like that. So it might not match exactly, but it will load super fast. They have a special caching system where they put it in there so they can just load that up lightning fast, and they then consider that to be a very good user experience, which helps with your SEO rankings, which helps with your ad quality score. So you'll be paying less per click, things like that.
Yeah, it's actually really so one of the things that really amazes me is, sometimes a lot of marketers or people trying to market the business focus so much on the stuff like funnels, but all this other stuff can really have a big effect on it as well. And especially, I know Google have released findings in terms of site speed, site load speed versus conversion drop-offs. And in terms of SEO, like we don't do any SEO. I don't proclaim to be an expert in it, but site speed nowadays has a real big effect on SEO as well. So, and also obviously mobile, and that kind of all links together, like how fast is your site on desktop versus mobile, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely does. And Google in particular are pushing for a better mobile experience. They know that that's sort of the direction things are going, and they want to be sending people to websites that are user friendly and load fast on mobile. So they definitely factor that into their ranking mechanisms and ad costs and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and so looking at like site speed and also mobile optimization, are there any tools that you can recommend or that you guys use on a regular basis to see if it's up to scratch?
Yeah, actually, Google has some really good tools. So you can just Google Google Mobile Friendly Test. That will generally say if there's any issues with the way that your website's displaying or loading on mobile. They have Google Page Speed Insights, can give you some good information about the speed of your desktop and your mobile version. There's another tool we use called GT Metrics. That focuses on the desktop version, but it is really good. It gives you some valuable insights into what's wrong and what needs fixing on your with regards to speed. There's another Google tool which gives you a bit of a different sort of overview. It talks about performance, about are you doing the right things for SEO, and then also things like accessibility and things like that. And that's web.dev. So that's an interesting tool to check out as well. It can give you some good feedback.
Yeah, awesome. I'll try and find those links and put them into the show notes. So I think that'd be really useful, especially as a first step for people to look at and go as a general, feel as a very high level overview, like how is my site doing and how's it going to affect my campaigns or how's it going to affect people coming to my site and looking to find out more about what we do as a business.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So let's touch on the third one, and I might jump in a little bit as well in terms of user experience and copy, because I think it's really interesting that you brought it up because I don't know if we're on completely different angles, because obviously when we look at websites and campaigns, we look at the copy, design, and things like that. But it'd be interesting to see your take on it coming from the other side of it in terms of maintaining websites and helping them, do really well. Like, what's the biggest thing you've seen that really lets it down, and how do you think people can go for it and improve their site with the copy or with the experience?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see is too much clutter and distractions. That people will have a lot of options in their navigation menu with drop downs going to all of their services and all these things that are not critical to most people's experience of that business. And a lot of that stuff could be moved into footer navigation or just be navigated to from other pages. So I think it's important to think about what can you remove that will not affect the results that you're getting. So take a good hard look at every page on your website, every element on that homepage, and think, could I get rid of this? And is that going to negatively affect the experience? Or would it probably be fine if they don't see that until later? And things like having a testimonials page, that's one of those sort of things that can clutter up your navigation. And people often won't go and scroll through a whole page of testimonials. But if you have testimonials on like a some key testimonials, or maybe, you scroll through a few testimonials on the key pages on your homepage or your main sales pages and service pages, and that sort of thing. That's more important, I think. So people seeing that testimonial exactly when they're getting the information and making the decision about whether this is right for them or not, rather than having a whole page dedicated to it.
I love it. It's like a testimonial page is like, if you do it the wrong way, comes across as very like bragful, if that's even the word.
Yeah.
Kind of like, hey everybody, look at me, look how much people love me. Whereas if you have it done strategically, it can be actually a really massive boost to conversions, but you've got to use it in the right way.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the other thing is like lead magnets. It's something you need to have a good solid lead magnet, but quite often I see people, they'll make one and then they'll make another and then they'll have another, and then they've got 3 different lead magnets, and they're trying to highlight each one on the home page, and they then are detracting from the actual goal. So the lead magnets is like a warm-up step towards a main goal, but you want to still cater for people who want to go straight to the main goal and who don't want to download some PDFs. They just want to they want to give you money. You don't want to stop them from doing that. So yeah, it's important to make sure that the end goal does still stand out and is your primary call to action, but then having a few lead magnets, and I would say pick your best one. You don't want to have lots of different lead magnets on every page. Pick the one that's most relevant to that page, and that should be the only thing you have there. And having call to action at the top, as I said before, with mobile, it's the same on desktop, having that scrolling down with you. So the entire time people are looking at your website, in the top right corner is that call to action. And then having that down at the bottom of the page as well, having a strong call to action in the footer on every single page. So after they've finished reading through your blog post and getting all this awesome information from your article, there should be a strong call to action at the bottom for them to start working with you. Things like that, I think. Yeah,
awesome. So I've got a bit of a selfish question, right? Because it's interesting that you brought up the lead magnet. So what we're doing is we created a page dedicated to resources. So for instance, someone comes onto our homepage, they go, look, this seems okay, definitely want to talk to you guys, but also, what proof have you got that you know what you're doing? So we kind of created a whole separate page. We've got 2 or 3 different lead magnets, let's call them, on a resources page. Like, would you recommend doing that, having that as a page, or would you say don't do that and just focus on one really good lead magnet on the homepage and having that as a call to action?
Yeah, that is a tricky question, because it can depend on the scenario with the market and and what you're having to offer. And if, I guess, you guys are quite often needing to educate clients on what they need, because they don't quite understand all this stuff. So I think having some good resources there is a good move. And so having and doing things like having your blog and that sort of thing, and then having sort of further resources, I think that is a good idea. I think that it probably and in doing it in that way, so that you have a page where you're not trying to bombard them with all of these lead magnets all over the shop. It's just, if they are interested in getting more stuff, you've got a page there they can go and choose what is interesting to them. So that's not a bad option. But I think that still on the rest of your pages, just thinking about what is the one lead magnet that's most relevant to people when they're looking at that page, still good to do that. But then, having a resources page, I think it can be a valuable thing.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So I think that was awesome. So just to kind of recap what we covered, we kind of went through 3 of the biggest issues, right? That's kind of on the websites at the moment, stopping people from getting the max out of their campaigns. So things like speed, mobile optimization, how cluttered your site is, and the user experience. So you've shared a couple of really good resources from Google themselves to go through and check that, and some awesome ideas in terms of like decluttering websites and things like that. Just before I wrap up, I wanted to ask you quickly, this is a question I ask everyone, stole it from Tim Ferriss shamelessly, but what is the one question I should have asked you that I haven't asked you yet?
Wow.
You've got some pretty good questions, and I just
I should have prepared for this.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, I don't. I guess uh,
Or what's one thing you wish people knew more? Like, aside from all the three things that we covered, what's the one thing that you wish people thought more about or knew more about?
yeah. um, I think just uh, knowing that the website is not a set and forget kind of thing. You do need to work on it. I think I kind of already touched on this, but with the security of your website, with keeping up with your business as it grows, you should be using your website as an evolving tool that helps to grow assets for your business in terms of building a strong sort of content um, archive of helpful information that helps your audience and brings customers into you, and you build a list of customers that you can then market to who are interested in what you have to offer, and making sure that the messaging and the design of your website stays relevant to who you are as a business. And I think that a lot of businesses do sort of build their website and then go, right, that's it, and they forget about it for the next 5 years until someone points out how horrible it is to them again. I think it is important to view your website as an asset. It's a part of your business. It is something that you can sell with your business, so it is a valuable asset, and you just need to think about it in that way, and think about how much value it gives your business, not just look at it as some expense like paying the electricity bill.
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome. So if the business owners out there listening to this need help with their websites, which I know we're going to be talking after this because I definitely do. What's the best way to contact you? Like, where can they find you?
Yeah, tunedwp.com is the website. You can send an email to support@tunedwp.com. We run a 24-hour support desk, and we get back to you lightning fast. We can jump in and make any urgent changes that you need, because we support a large number of websites in that way. And just if you're wanting to get I'd be more than happy to have a look at any of your listeners' websites and just give them some feedback on what could be improved. There's on tunedwp.com, there's a button there for a performance review. They can check that out, and for free, I'll take a look and give them my recommendations, and you can decide what you want to do from there.
That's absolutely fantastic. I'll definitely be using that too, because I'm kind of curious as to how bad our stuff is, even though we're going for an upgrade. So, Justin, mate, thanks so much for coming on board. You're an absolute expert at this, and I know that tech can be confusing for some people, certain times, which is kind of like, the thing that I always say is like, don't try and work this out by yourself. Just if you're running a business, you should be doing what you're really great at, or working within your zone of genius. And websites definitely isn't mine, especially the tech side of it. So it's always good to have people on sharing, some of the technical stuff, if in case people do want to at least understand what they're doing before they outsource the actual job to someone else. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing all of your knowledge and all of your expertise.
No worries at all, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And for everyone who's listening, as per usual, if there's someone who really benefit from having their website updated, if it's been a while, please do share this episode with them. And for the Marketing from the Trenches podcast as well, jump on and subscribe. Give me a review. Let me know what you like about it, what other topics you want to see. It's all really helpful in terms of what guests we can bring on. So appreciate you guys listening to this episode. It's been awesome. Justin shared some great tips that you can implement fairly quickly to understand at least where your site needs improvement. And we'll see you all on the next episode.